Hey guys, it's Luke back again after an absolute heater of a week. We had a 150 to 1 winner win. Cam Davis came through for us, my number one value play of the week. My longest long shot I've ever hit on the PGA Tour, so I'm hyped to get in here to give you guys some picks for this week's John Deere Classic. This video is going to be my preview video. It'll be my early research for every PGA Tour stop we have over the next coming weeks as well. It's going to be all the important details for the field. We're going to have a course breakdown going on, and I'm going to give you my top 3 metrics for my analysis for the week. As always, this is going to be data-based analysis. If you're new to my channel, that's what all of my analysis is. I use my engineering prowess, what I've learned through my experience as an electrical engineer, to help create tools, custom modeling, visualizations to help you guys with your daily fantasy lineups. I create them for a multitude of sports, not just the PGA Tour. I also cover football, basketball, MMA, and more. So if you're looking for database content, if you're looking for facts, not opinions, make sure to check out my channel because I have plenty for you guys. I also have a Patreon page that I just launched for my PGA Tour projections. I have my projections for every single player and all the slates for you on there, my ownership projections. I also have some game theory notes, some other tools I'll be putting up over the next few weeks. I should make sure to get in now while it's only $1. Yeah, it's only $1 right now, so you guys can get in, see what I have to offer. I'm going to be updating with even more tools, a lineup builder eventually. We're also going to have a shots gained database available for you guys where you can put in your own modeling, do some of this stuff yourself. I'll be teaching you guys how to use those kind of tools. And overall, if you guys want to get in, become a part of the community at the beginning, I'd highly recommend it. I think there's a ton of value for you there. You get direct access to me in a Discord server as well, where you can ask me any questions. We can go over some game theory notes. I'll be at your disposal. So just make sure to take advantage of that. Now that we got all of that out of the way, let's hop into the preview. So to begin this video, I just want to go over our picks from last week. So again, we ended up hitting that huge winner that I mentioned, Cam Davis. That was our best pick of the week by far. He was our number one value play, somebody that I was bullish on. Again, somebody that putts really good on that bent POA surface. He had been putting well of late, so it made a lot of sense for me, and it made a lot of sense in my betting card. I was also bullish on the Aussie because he was striping the golf ball. I called him sneaky hot coming in. You know, he was gaining off the tee, even if it wasn't as much as he's used to. He was still gaining off the tee. I was doing well with his irons. So again, the model played out. The math came out, helped us out, got that winner. That's always good to see. We also had Bryson in our core. Unfortunately, that was a huge letdown. Bryson DeChambeau ended up missing the cut for only the second time in the entire year. He ended up losing strokes off the tee, which never happens for Bryson DeChambeau. A lot of that was due to hitting into some hazards. He hit it out of play twice as well. He also lost strokes putting, which again is not something that we typically see from Bryson DeChambeau. He's typically very good on the bent POA surface. And yeah, he was our one big miss from last week. Again, we had Joaquin Niemann. He ended up doing very well, made the week profitable. Jason Kokrak was my favorite play on the entire slate. Obviously faltered on those last 2 or 3 holes. Really had a chance to even tie for the lead in my opinion. But you can't complain with a top 10 performance. So overall, we went 3 for 4 with our core picks, the one miscut being Bryson DeChambeau. Our value picks, we got all 6 through the cut, including Cam Davis, our winner. For our fades, we had Webb miss the cut. Will Zalatoris made the cut, but was last place out of those that did that, so didn't help anyone who had him. And Patrick Reed was the only one of our fades that did make it through the cut. He didn't have a great performance, though. Finished tied for 32nd. Didn't hurt you if you didn't play him. And lastly, our sleepers were 2 for 3. We had 2 great sleepers in there. Sebastian Munoz, Matthew Neesmith. Both of them top 30'd, and for their price tag was great. Our only miss was HV3, who had a very disappointing performance. He just couldn't make a putt. He ended up losing 4 strokes putting in just the 2 rounds that he had, and that was the end of the story for him. So now let's hop into the field for this week and some of the tournament details for this year's John Deere Classic. This week's field is headlined by Daniel Berger. We also have Sungjae Im. Believe it or not, it's a huge drop-off after that. We have Brian Harman, Russell Henley, Kevin Streelman, Siwoo Kim, and that is it. The rest of the field is absolute dog shit. Kind of like I mentioned before, it is the worst field that I've seen in PGA DFS for over a year, maybe even 2 years now. And as a result, it's very top-heavy. Daniel Berger is less than 10 to 1. He was 8 to 1 when he opened. He might even be priced down to 7 to 1 now. Sungjae Im is right around 12 to 1 right now. And a lot of those other guys on the list, you know, round out the 10, 20, even 30 to 1 kind of range. My opinion, you're not going to see a winner from that range this week. I am much more willing to go further down the board. It's just a super weak field. There's going to be a lot of volatility because it is expected to be a birdie fest. We'll hop into that here in just a second. But yeah, I think the winner is definitely going to come from down the board. The pricing this week on DraftKings is extremely wonky. We have some guys priced up that have no business being priced up. A lot of the guys in the $10,000 range I think should be priced maybe even $12,000, even $13,000 for a field of this strength. Again, this isn't going to be the picks or anything like that. That'll be in my video coming out later on tonight. But it's going to be a wonky field. It's a full 156-man field. It's going to have the normal top 65 in ties making the cut. And all the world's best are either playing in the Scottish Open this week. That has an extremely strong field. I'm actually going to be coming out with a Scottish Open video on Wednesday just because it's such a strong field. I mean, you have Justin Thomas, Morikawa, Xander. Pretty much all the top players in the world are playing that event. It's essentially like a Riviera or a Memorial strength of field. So definitely going to be playing DFS on that side this week. And as a result, like I said, we are left with all of the nobodies. Pretty much all the guys priced $8,000, even $8,500 and above are typically priced in the high 6,000s. I mean, it's a shit show. We're going to be playing guys this week and having to play a lot of guys this week that just aren't very good, people that are usually missing cuts. So it's not going to be comfortable. I do think there's a huge edge to be had this week, though. Obviously, with the pricing, a lot of people are going to be forced into plays that just make no sense at all. I'm going to be leaving a ton of salary on the table. There's guys in the $7,000 range I think that are a lot better than the guys in the $9,000 range. And so I'm going to have plenty of lineups where I leave $1,000, even $2,000 on the table. That's something that I'm not comfortable doing from week to week. But with this wonky of a field, especially with just dog shit of a field, it makes a lot of sense this week. With that being said, let's talk about the course this week. Let's break it down and talk about how it's going to play. For the course this week, we're looking at TPC Deere Run out of Silvis, Illinois. This is a par 71, only 7,066 yards. This is one of the easier tour stops that we see pretty much ever on the PGA Tour. And a lot of that has to do with how receptive the greens are. They try to firm it up as much as they can at this golf course. The PGA Tour kind of is known for watering up places to make them more scoreable. But with TPC Deere Run, they have to do the opposite. It's just that lush. The grounds run that pure. We've seen winning scores 27 under. Michael Kim in 2018, comes to mind. I believe he won by 9 shots that year. You're looking at a golf course that is extremely gettable. It was designed by D.A. Weibering. It is a 78 bunker resort, so about average for a PGA Tour right there. And on average, the greens are 5,500 square foot on average. That is relatively small. At Pebble Beach, we see a rate around 5,200 being the average. So a little bit bigger than that, obviously, but you're still looking at small targets for these guys. As for the grass types, we're going to have bent grass greens. It's not the bent grass POA that we've seen the last 2 weeks at the Travelers, and then last week, we're seeing just a pure bent grass this week. Bent grass is extremely fast. It tends to be a little bit more inconsistent than Bermuda grass or even a bent POA, something like that. So some of the putters that aren't as good, some of the guys that tend to struggle from time to time, actually end up doing better on this surface. As for a returning champion, we have Dylan Fratelli. That was our 2019 winner. This event was not on the schedule for the 2020 season. It was part of the schedule that was cut off due to COVID. And as a result, Fratelli has been the returning champion for 2 years now. Michael Kim won in 2018, like I said. We had Bryson win for the first time on tour in 2017, and Ryan Moore was our winner in 2016. Like I said before, this is an easy golf course. It's going to play very similarly to what we saw at the Travelers, also to what we saw last week. It was just a very gettable golf course. There were birdies in bunches. My number one key stat for both of those weeks was birdie or better percentage. While it is not my number one key stat this week, we'll get to those here in 1 second, I think it is going to be an absolute scoring fest. Again, right now, for the reports that I've seen on the course, it is firm and fast. The unfortunate part is that there are tons of storms coming in throughout the week. The entire United States is getting hit with tons of storms. That's just what happens in the summer, especially when there's been some tropical depressions and whatnot that have ran their way through the country. So it's going to be very damp out there. They're expecting lift, clean in place to potentially be in play. If that happens, it's going to be a plotter's golf course. It's going to be an absolute accuracy fest. That's something that I'm definitely going to keep in mind. And if we take a look at last week's scoreboard, I think it's going to be a good comparison for this week. You saw a lot of great putters at the top. Obviously, Cam Davis, not a great putter. He's somebody who had a decent week putting, more of a ball striker. That can get it done at any golf course. It can happen on any week like that. But a majority of the guys up there did it with their short game. We saw a lot of guys gain 5-6 strokes putting, and I expect that to be the case this week as well. With all that being said, let's hop into some of the key specifics, some of the metrics I'll be using for my modeling this week, and what I'm going to use to narrow down my player pool for DraftKings. And now for our key metrics. So these are the stats that I'm using for my custom modeling this week. My main technique for golf DFS is to characterize a golf course based on how we know it's going to play, some of the weather conditions, essentially get a feel for what types of players are going to do well there. Some of that is regression based, where I take past success, their model, the way that they characterize as a player over the entire year, and I see if there's a correlation between some of those statistics and how they do. At some courses, there's some strong correlations. At others, there's not. At this course, there's only really one stat that sticks out in that category. We'll get to it with my number 2 key stat. But the other type of analysis I use is straight narrative based, right? We've seen these golf tournaments play out before. We know how they typically play in terms of their conditions. And as a result, we can make very good inferences or educated guesses, we can say, as to how it'll play and the statistics that are most important. Obviously, the more experience that you have in this field, the better you can model it. Obviously, I use a lot of just straight up mathematical modeling. I let the stats do a lot of the heavy lifting, I say. I try not to get in the way of that. And as a result, you're going to see that a lot of my modeling it makes sense, right? A lot of it's shots gained based, a lot of it's shots gained total based. I try to take a look at recent form, I take a look at historical baseline, and I try to narrow down, especially with putting, onto the surface that they're playing on. Especially if the player has a huge sample size, let's say 300, 400 rounds on that surface, then that data becomes extremely reliable. So I tend to do my analysis that way. Just wanted to get that out there for anyone that's new to this channel. So at number 3, we have shots gained putting. It's going to be shots gained putting on bent grass surfaces, pure bent grass surfaces, and we're going to be emphasizing 10 to 15 feet and 15 to 25 feet in terms of our proximities. A lot of the reason for that is that TPC Deere Run, you have small greens. Like I said before, you're not going to have many 40, 50-foot putts because they are that small. You're looking at a ton of 20-footers if you're not hitting your spot. And if you're really throwing darts like you can at a golf course, especially if it rains this week, you're looking at a lot of those 10 to 15-footers or even less than that. Right, so I'm looking at those proximities. Lag putting I don't think is going to be a very big deal this week. And again, we're looking at bent grass specialists. It's a fast putting surface, especially compared to a bent POA hybrid or something like that. And as a result, some of the putters, like I said before, that aren't as aggressive tend to do well. People that just are a little bit afraid to make putts, they're afraid to get it to the hole, they seem to do so on this golf surface. If you take a look at Doug Gim, he's the most notable example of this. He's typically a negative 0.86 putter, but on the surface he gains 0.4 strokes. That's over a 1.26 stroke difference. So it definitely makes a difference for some of these guys. If we take a look at some of the guys that have done well at this golf course, we had Bryson win his first time here. Zach Johnson won this like twice. He has tons of top 5s. Michael Kim, they were all great putters. They're all good putters on bent grass as well. So that's why I'm so hunkered down on it this week. At number 2, we have fairways gained. This is going to be a weighed fairway percentage. This is a stat that you haven't heard of before. It's not one of the major 4 key statistics or anything like that, but it's going to be absolutely key this week at TPC Deere Run. Again, I mentioned before that only one key stat came out on my regression models, and that was driving accuracy. A lot of reason for that is that we have tree-lined fairways. The rough can be a little bit penal. It's typically not, though. It depends on when they play it. It is in the middle of the summer, so it is going to be a little bit more penal than usual. And my model comes out as number 6 out of the 56 golf courses on tour in terms of its importance over the last 8 years. So what that means is that I rank the top 56 golf courses in terms of their driving accuracy. We take a look at the golfers and how they played over the entire year, and then we use that and correlate it to their finishing position at the golf tournament over the last 8 years. Over those 8 years, only 5 golf courses was driving accuracy more important. So it's very important here. A lot of those golf courses were like U.S. Open venues. It was golf courses like the opposite of Augusta National, where there's like no rough at all. So to see that, it's jarring, right? It means it's an important statistic. So for me, that's why it comes in at number 2. Driving accuracy is typically overrated, in my opinion. A lot of these guys are just strong enough to hack it out of the rough. But when it comes up in my models, when it comes up in my regression modeling like that, I can't ignore it. This numbers are talking, and like I said, I tried to stay out of the way of the numbers. And at number 1, we have shots gained approach. This week, we're going to be emphasizing the 150 to 175 range the most, followed by the 175 to 200 and 125 to 150. And the reason why we're focusing on that 150 to 175 range, even with the lack of distance on the card, is there are tons of dog legs. So the effective distance, like I said, 70, 66. But we're looking at a golf course that's playing a lot closer to like 72, even 7,300 yards. Almost every single hole does have a dog leg. Is heavily treed up there in Illinois. So as a result, you're not going to be able to take the balls over these corners. You're looking at laying up to the corner, usually with hybrids, sometimes even irons off the tee, and then having long irons into these greens. There are some holes that are very short as well, so that's why I have the 100 to 125 yard range on there. The holes that are straight are short like you'd expect, right? It's only a 7,000 yard golf course. There's munis that you've played that are longer from the tips. So on those holes, you definitely want to be good with your wedges. So we're looking at pretty much those two as the most important ranges. Obviously, the 175 to 200. If you're getting some of those really, really long irons, you're going to have some of those, especially off of the tee. So like I mentioned, you're clubbing down. So guys that are good with those long irons are definitely going to have advantage with some of their tee shots. In general, shots gained approach is always the best statistic in terms of correlation to success. It's only like 37 out of 56 in terms of importance this week. When you compare it to other golf courses. But when you compare shots gained approach to even something like driving accuracy, it's 10 times more important. So it's always going to be number 1 on my key stats. If shots gained approach isn't number 1 on my key stats, then you know something is drastic that week. Just a heads up. That's going to be it for this week's preview, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think the winning score is going to be at TPC Deere Run. For a person who gets closest in the comments, I'm going to give a free month of my Patreon. It'll have my projections, ownership rankings, all of that, so make sure to enter. As always, make sure to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the content. It really helps me out with growing my channel. It also makes sure that you guys are able to see my content as soon as I post it. It's a win-win right there, so make sure to go and like right now. As always, good luck with your DFS lineups. There's going to be a lot of money to be made this week. I think, again, a huge edge is to be had with the people that do their research, that do their due diligence. There's a huge inkling, I'd say, there's just a propensity to take weeks like this off, to scale back a little bit, not pay as much attention. A lot of people are just going to enter DFS lineups without doing a lot of this due diligence. And as a result, you should look to take advantage of those people. I'm going to be entering a little bit more cash lineups this week than typical. I'll still have my GPP lineups in there. And I'm actually going heavier this week due to that edge. So keep that in mind. Perhaps do it as well. I think it's a good idea. But as always, let's win some cash. And I'll see you guys tonight with my top 6 golfers to target.